Hi guys, Lauren Daigle here with Mazuri Exotic Animal Nutrition. I'm with my friend Jarod Miller from Jarod Miller Animal Exploration, and we have some animal friends here at our booth at Global Pet Expo in Orlando, Florida. Jarod, why don't you tell us a little bit about your friend here?
I know, this is amazing. Well, this is little Mary Kate, who's perched upon my shoulder. I bet she's having a blast here at Global Pet this year. And of course, this is her favorite place to be because her favorite food is Mazuri primate food.
Oh,
so,
look at that.
Isn't that great? So this is like pretty much like a smorgasbord for this little guy. Now, Mary Kate's a beautiful little species of primate called a cotton-top tamarin, amply named. Look at that hairdo that she has. She looks like she literally is a little human-like Q-tip. And she can pretty much move around and traverse through the high canopies in the South American rainforest. And you know, she's just like us. She has like little hands, she has arms. She is a primate even though she's only in a little 2-pound package.
Awesome.
Isn't she beautiful though?
And this is called a what?
This is called a cotton-top tamarin. And cotton-top tamarins, again, they're one of the smallest species of primates in the world. In South America, you have cotton-top tamarins and you have marmosets and all these little guys that kind of fit a niche, almost like a squirrel would here, you know, in the northern hemisphere, but in a little monkey form. Now, they are a highly endangered creature. You'd find these guys primarily in the Amazon basin and Brazil, certain parts of Peru. But again, what an opportunity to see a beautiful little animal like this. And again, Mazuri helps keep these animals healthy and reproducing in captivity so we can see them for generations to come. Isn't she beautiful? Now, and again, she'll be here all day to meet everyone. And now we have another special guest here. Now, this is Petunia. She looks a little bit more... Oh, here we go. She's going to come over here? Yeah. All right, thank you, Crystal. And look at how...
I'll go on this side.
Yeah, why don't you... Yeah. Go wherever a porcupine will let you. Don't you agree? Now, there we go. Give her a little bit of a snack there. And she's actually eating Mazuri rodent block right now because porcupines, even though she has this crazy hairdo, most people look at this animal and say, what planet does it come from, right, Crystal? But believe it or not, this is a rodent just like your hamster or your squirrel or anything at home. But again, look at this crazy hairdo. Now, where Petunia is naturally found, in Africa, she needs this for protection. Now, here in North America, our little porcupines will spend majority of their time up in the trees, and they have these little barbs, which are pretty hazardous. But when you live in an environment, think about it, Lauren, you've been to Africa, where you have lions and leopards and hyenas and all these big predators, you need to be able to protect yourself 24/7, and this porcupine certainly has the arsenal to do so. Now, you might notice she's shaped kind of like a bullet. Now, the African crested porcupine, unlike our porcupines here in North America, don't really climb trees at all. They're more of a terrestrial rodent, so she'll spend her entire day, or in this case, night, because she is nocturnal, porcupine. You would actually have to physically either, you know, a dog maybe bite the porcupine, or if you were to put your hand, or like in my case when I was a kid, I fell on a porcupine, you actually have to put all your pressure on it for those quills to release.
So what do they eat in the wild? You said this is technically a rodent?
Well, they are rodent, yeah. Now, what the definition of a rodent actually is are obviously, you know, mice and rats and hamsters and porcupines. All rodents have one characteristic in common, is that their teeth continuously grow. So whether it be a beaver or a woodchuck or anything, so basically that's what pretty much defines a rodent for the most part. And so, you know, in the wild they have to eat a lot of, you know, seeds and nuts and plants, but then they also have to chew. So that's why, you know, that's why mice chew in our house, that's why squirrels get into our garage, and, you know, that's why it's important to feed Petunia here, you know, a diet like Mazuri, where it not only gives her all the nutrition she needs, but also helps wear down those teeth, because they'll continue to grow unless they have something hard to chew on a daily basis.
Okay. What would you say like the biggest difference between these guys and the porcupines that we have here in the U.S. is?
Well, obviously size. Like this guy is I would say about a half to twice as big as our North American porcupine, just in length. The other reason is, like I said before, our porcupines here in North America are arboreal. They live primarily in trees. These guys live on the ground. Also, their quill structure. Our North American porcupines are pretty furry, and they just have little tiny fishhook-like quills that are on their tail and on the back of their body, where compared to this is a full arsenal. I mean, this is really a pretty a formidable defense mechanism, wouldn't you say, Lauren?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive.
And then also, too, these guys rattle their tail just like a rattlesnake. Yeah, and so they will give you a warning that, don't get too close so you don't accidentally trip on one of these at nighttime if you're out in the savannah.
And I apologize if I didn't hear this, but did you tell us what these were made out of?
No, I didn't. I kind of made the references that, it is a hairdo. Like, pretty much a porcupine, they have all these different types of fur. Like, they have their whiskers, obviously, will go from the front to the back. Their whiskers, we have these kind of softer quills here, or softer hairs here. His big, almost like Billy Idol mohawk is a different kind of hair. And then these quills are actually a combination of hairs all fit together, but they all form to one follicle. So can you imagine if you pluck out one of your hairs, but all of our hairs put together? So it's keratin is the substance, just like our hairs and just like our fingernails.
Awesome.
Isn't that neat?
And they shed them, obviously.
And they shed them all the time, right? Voluntarily or involuntarily. So, yeah, very cool. So, do you want to meet one more of our feathered friends? Okay, great. Right. Thank you, Petunia.
I'm going to switch back over to this.
Yeah, come on over here. Now, this is something that everyone is familiar with, especially in addition to supplying all the zoos. Missouri, obviously zoos prefer this food, but pets deserve it. And what better animal to deserve Missouri diet than this beautiful parrot? And it's actually a cockatoo.
Okay.
And umbrella cockatoo, right?
Yes, she's an umbrella cockatoo.
Now Michelle has worked with this little girl for a very long time, and her name is Jody, right?
Yes.
And believe it or not, Jody is 25 years old. She's a quarter of a century old. And that's what people, when they get pet birds like this, they have to keep in mind that, when you have a parrot at home, not only are they very cute and very entertaining and very beautiful, but they will outlive us. So you have to really make sure that, you have a good plan, whether it be in your will or, and keep these guys healthy for a very, very long time. Now, Jody, she's an umbrella cockatoo, right?
Yes.
Now, why is she all excited?
She gets very excited when meeting new people. They're actually known as the Velcro bird, so they like to, cling to people, and they're a very snuggly bird. They're one of the most friendliest birds out there. So
is that why they're a popular pet?
Yes, it is why they're a popular pet, and she just loves meeting new people, so that's why she's getting very excited right now. It's very enriching for her
to be out here,
to do
right?
events and meet people, and educate people on her species.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up a really good point, too, because if you think about it, compared to the porcupine, a bird like this, they live in these huge flocks in the wild. And you'll find these guys in Australia, and it'll just be an entire, sea of birds in the sky. And they live in, how big is a typical cockatoo flock, would you say? Up maybe 100 or so?
Yeah, depending on the food availability, it could be up to 100.
Yeah, so they definitely like that interaction. Obviously, they're social with each other, so they're also going to be social with us.
So where are these guys found?
These guys are actually found in Indonesia, and the sulfur-crested cockatoo, which is very similar to
this
Australia,
one,
is from Australia. They have the yellow crest at the top.
Okay.
So they're primarily throughout Indonesia, but they're actually endangered in the wild right now.
Wow. Now, what are the ones I misspoke? Which are the species that are found in Australia?
The sulfur-crested.
Sulfur-crested,
yes.
That's right. And the umbrellas are more. And then there's another species of cockatoo called the Moluccan cockatoo, right?
Yes.
And they're quite large, and they have a lot more pink on them as well.
Okay.
So there's a number of species. But I think the umbrellas are one of my favorites. They seem to be one of the most animated out of all the cockatoo species.
When she puts her crest up, what is that like? What's the reason for that?
It could be a variety of things. They'll display for mates in the wild. Right now, I would interpret it as excitement. She definitely does it when she meets new people very frequently, and so that's just.
So it's kind of like a display, and it's probably how they communicate.
Yeah, right.
They communicate with each other, and that. So it's not even just sounds. They communicate, almost like us. They communicate with like facial expressions, but in this case, feather expressions.
Feathers, yes.
Yeah,
okay.
So definitely a beautiful bird.
And these particular birds live about how long? She's 25 now, so is she in the prime of her life, or is she just kind of a teenager?
And they can actually live up to 60 years. Especially
okay.
when they're under human care, they'll live much longer. So she has a lot more life left in her. So.
Wow, no, she is beautiful. And look how comfortable she is too. She's so comfortable that she's actually taking a bath on live Facebook, which is amazing.
What do these guys usually eat in the wilds?
They eat a lot of fruits, vegetables if they find any, a lot of seeds. They're very big seed dispensers, so they're very important for that in the wild, dispensing seeds throughout.
Yeah, so they're pretty much like the gardeners, right? So they'll eat seeds to do their, and then as they fly, they'll just plant seeds. Oh, she agrees. She loves this
So
stuff.
one of the things that we hear a lot about is people that keep parrots or birds as pets is this misunderstanding that they have to just eat only seeds. And so we recommend feeding our pelleted diet. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but we find that with the seeds, it's not necessarily nutritionally complete, and a variety that like they would get in the wild.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and we do use a mix of both your pelleted diet and seeds for all of our
and
birds.
fruit as well too.
And fruits and vegetables, so they get a wide variety of nutrition in their diet.
It's pretty amazing too. And what I've noticed, having a lot of friends that have raised parrots and having parrots growing up as a kid too, is that their diet is as diverse as ours. Like, can you imagine if we just ate seeds or peanuts or something every single day, what we would look like or what our health would be like? But yeah, with that variety of diet, with the nutrition, the basic nutrition, then the variety of diet, this is what keeps these guys living that 60 to 80 years, and some birds even longer than that. So.
Okay. Great. What would you say one of the biggest challenges keeping a parrot as a pet would be, or some of the challenges somebody might face when thinking about getting a parrot?
That's a very big decision. I think, any pet's a big decision, I think, but as you get larger and more social and more intelligent creatures, obviously a dog is one of the most common pets, but a very big responsibility. I think a parrot is a dog times 5, because you have an animal that has the cognitive abilities, it loves the socialization, it needs it. It needs that daily interaction, it needs that specialized diet, and and again, the lifespan is another thing to consider, is that this really, you're not getting a pet, you're getting a family member, and you have to treat your parrot as such.
It's basically like having a 3-year-old child for the rest of your life.
Right. That's a great,
Minus no diapers, right?
Yeah.
Well, wherever they want.
Yeah. I mean, if we get it, we should. She's been actually pretty good. We don't need a diaper for Jody today.
Yes, she's very good about that. Thank you.
That's it. That's awesome. Very cool, Michelle. Thank you so much. That's awesome. You as well. This is awesome.
So we have some questions from some of our viewers.
Oh, great.
If you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
A couple questions. So, from Keely, she's asked, how did you get into working with exotics, and what sparked your interest?
As far back as I can remember, I think it was kind of an innate thing. Like, I think I was born, I don't know, as my own spirit animal, I would say. Like, I just born thinking of myself as an animal. Well, I grew up, as most kids do, you're fascinated with animals and with wildlife, and I just, it's just all I wanted to do, and I was fortunate enough to grow up in an area where I could get outdoors a lot. I was out in the creeks, and I was out in the woods, and I was always looking for animals in my own backyard, and then I think that's what inspired me. And obviously back then too, there was some great nature programming, and I'm not going to age myself, but I'd go to the library all the time. I don't think people go to the library anymore, but this is way before the internet, but I would literally be a little kid reading every animal book I could possibly find. And again, and my fascination for animals and wildlife, it kind of even took me a little bit further. It got me more interested in just all science and all exploration and all, working with people, and then, eventually becoming like, kind of an educator to inspire other kids and other people about, how important it is to really, not only appreciate animals, but really work to respect that they need to live among us, And every year that goes by, I think our world, we get such a departure from nature, as our cities grow and as we're building, we're encroaching on animal habitats. I think every day, the more we urbanize, we get further and further away from nature. So every opportunity, whether you visit the zoo or you visit, get a chance to see animals in the wild, or, and everything with technology now, it's like, I think it's great being able to take those images of animals and working with them and send them out to the general public. Because, not everyone is as lucky as us that we get to work with animals on a very, very daily basis. And, I just think there's no better way to live your life.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Eliza wants to know what made you choose zoology specifically, and what school did you go to?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, it was funny. I was very interested because I'm very interested, obviously, in zoology is a study of animal life. So I was very interested in all types of animals, whether it be little invertebrates all the way up to the African elephant. It's hard for me to even come up with a favorite. So studying zoology, I was able to understand everything from the physiology to the behavior to the ecology and everything. That it was just a very interesting degree program, because I wanted to know everything about animals from the ground up. And that was a degree program that allowed me to get that in, to foster that education and interest.
Okay,
Yeah, and I chose a college where I grew up in upstate New York. I chose a college that offered that programming. So, and not too many schools, especially at that time, offered it. So, so I chose a university that actually I wanted that to be my degree.
Okay. So did you know at the time when you went to get a zoology degree that you wanted to be what you are today? I mean, did you have a vision for where you wanted to go? Or did you just know you wanted to work with animals?
I just wanted to work, basically I wanted to work with animals, and I did ever since I was a little kid, whether it would be trying to rescue skunks off the side of the road, or whether it would be like, I used to train dogs when I was a kid. I just wanted to work with animals at whatever capacity, or work at a pet store, or maybe, but really my dream was to see animals in the wild, travel, and, be able to share that enthusiasm with people. So I think having that solid background in zoology has given me, that foundation to then kind of, just follow my animal instinct.
So you've had a pretty interesting career path. You worked in pet retail stores. You worked at a zoo. You ran a zoo.
Yeah.
You now work in TV.
Yeah.
You do live animal shows.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of your history and your experience and the different capacities that you've worked with animals?
I've been very lucky. So I think I just kind of follow my, my path sometimes, and it's like, and literally it all comes down to one similar goal, and that is like I literally want to physically either see or handle or be around an animal of any kind every single day of my life, which I've been able to do that, but you're right, through kind of some interesting course. When I was a kid, again, like I said, I used to work and train dogs. I was always interested in animal behavior as well, and we can learn so much just by simply observing how animals carry themselves, how they interact with their environment, with us, with each other, and that teaches us a little bit more about how to take care of them in the wild. And obviously too, my background has just been mainly about I've been very interested in just animal husbandry. So, ever since being a kid, raising my own animals, working my own animals, working as a kid in a pet store, as any kid would probably want to, and then eventually, running a zoo, and then being able to travel and work with, zoos and scientists all over the world. It's just been really, it's just been I don't even think it's a career. I just think it's it's more of a lifestyle, because I don't think it's a job if you like it this much.
Yeah, of course.
So.
All right, we have a couple more questions here. James wants to know if you have any advice for our 13-year-old daughter who has loved learning about and interacting with animals all her life and would love to work with animals someday.
All right. Well, I mean, definitely the best advice I can give you, and this is kind of something I always try to do myself, is like, a lot of it is you really just kind of have to make things happen. You have to, volunteer. Start right at the very beginning. Volunteer at your local animal shelter. Maybe go take care of maybe some friends that might have some animals. Try to volunteer at the zoo. Really, the experience is what is most important when you want to physically work with animals. Because especially like running a zoo. When we have the zoo, everyone. It's obviously very important to have a solid education. But again, a lot of it is you're learning on the job. I mean, you're going to learn more from an animal. Physically taking care of it than necessarily you'd be working in a classroom capacity. So it just has to be a very solid mix of getting that background education, and then just a lot of it's going to be volunteering your time. Volunteer your time. Work with with your local shelters. Work with, let's say, an organization, and figure out what you like best. If you like horses, go work with horses. If you like dogs and cats, go work with dogs and cats. If you like wildlife, volunteer at the local zoo. So. There's some avenues you can get, and again, that experience, the more you can get, will springboard your career and you'll be able to work with animals. And then you think about it in some other way too, where sometimes you have to figure out like what education path is the best for you. Let's say if you are really into communications, maybe you want to be a teacher and teach ecology and work in that capacity. Or, here in Orlando, like if you want to work with marine mammals, a lot of people go the psychology route to learn about how to, work with some of the more intelligent species of creatures. So really figure out, and now that we have the internet too, it's like you can, there's so many resources and so much information out there that I think would really streamline anyone's path to fulfilling their dream of working with animals on a daily basis.
Great. one thing that I just thought as another career is we have a nutritionist on staff at Mazuri who has his PhD in studying exotic animal nutrition. So that's another path you could go.
Absolutely.
Because we're constantly learning about how to feed these guys, you know, in zoo environments or rehab environments.
And that's like one of the most important things too. I mean, there's so many ways you can help animals in so many capacities, and that is a perfect example. And again, you know, to be able to really replicate what these animals have, you know, especially here in captivity, what they would normally have in the wild, or what would really keep them the healthiest and happiest. I mean, that's the goal of any zookeeper or nutritionist or animal caretaker.
Sure. Great. A couple more questions. All right. Alyssa wants to know, what has been the most challenging animal that you've had to work with, and how did you handle the situation?
Wow,
Ooh.
that is a really, really great question, and I guess, and I like the whole part of how'd you handle the situation, because I may or may not have handled it correct. No, I think I handled it correctly. But really, you know what's funny? That's a very, very hard question to answer, because we've worked with so many animals that have been very challenging. I would say, believe it or not, let's see, what would be, oh, I know what it is. There's an animal that when I was younger, I worked with an animal called a kinkajou. And a kinkajou is this little South American creature. They're very cute. They're nocturnal, they have very large eyes. They actually have a 13-inch long tongue for eating, almost look like a little teddy bear with a monkey tail. They have a prehensile tail. And I remember I was taking care of one that needed a home, and he was one of the most challenging animals to work with, because and what's funny is people will often you know, back 20 years ago they were very popular as pets, but they were an animal that were just so curious and so destructive. And I had one get loose in the house and he just destroyed everything. And then when I went to go capture him, he went and he pierced my ear. He bit through my ear. So it's like on every level, this animal really gave me a run for my money. So that's one of many. But I'm trying to think of just, you know, what's even funny too is like even working with, and you're going to laugh at me when I say this, probably one of the most dangerous animals that I come in contact lately are my parents' house cats. So my parents actually have these two house cats that have taken over their house. I don't live there anymore, so now my territory is now my old territory is their territory, and they demonstrate it quite often with their teeth and claws. So believe it or not, with all these crazy wild animals and going to all these foreign places and seeing these animals in the wild and being, you know, among dangerous stuff, sometimes your ordinary house cat can also be as hazardous as anything else. So
that just gave me a thought. So yeah. A lot of folks really want these like exotic cats now. You see them on the internet, on YouTube and stuff. What's the difference between having like a serval as a pet or a lynx as a pet versus a house cat? And what would be the challenges of trying to get more like a Bengal cat or a cross?
Well, you know, I mean, for those who, you know, cats are the #1 pet in the United States, you know, cats and dogs. But cats really, you know, any cat owner will tell you that all a house cat really is a tiger in a 9-pound package. I mean, and in many cases they could be a lot more irritable. They could be a lot more challenging. They could be a lot more, you know. Again, I'm painting all these negative connotations. Cats are wonderful pets, but they do have the ability. But when you think about getting like a serval cat or a lynx or other exotic pets, or other exotic larger cats, really you have to keep in mind is that for all the problems that you have with these little cats, you're just multiplying that in a much larger, much more powerful creature that has that just little bit more wildness to them, that they're not going to behave in the same way as a domestic animal is. And I think when people do consider any type of unconventional pet, there is a difference. Like, let's say there are some unusual, unconventional pets that we've found to make really nice pets, whether it be like a hedgehog or a sugar glider or a flying squirrel or something like that. Granted, it's not your average pet, but they do well with us. But you have to keep in mind is that certain wild animals, let's say whether it be a primate or a larger animal or a wild cat, in that case, you're just, you know, you're going into a totally different realm of that animal isn't a pet. You know, you're going to be caring for that animal. You can interact with that animal. You can, you know, with the right resources and the right experience and education, you could properly provide the husbandry for this animal, but it's never going to be a cat or a dog.
Yeah. Okay.
Nope.
Great. Great. We have a couple more questions here. This is a good one, and I know you're not going to answer it. What is your favorite exotic animal and why?
Oh my God, that is like, see, there's so many, because I like all these. I like all these different, well, I like different animals, and obviously I do gravitate towards wildlife or more exotic species. One of my favorite, I guess, can I answer that in like different groups of animals?
Sure.
Okay, so I would say, I think my favorite cat would have to be the cheetah. Because I think they're just a beautiful animal. They're, obviously one of the fastest terrestrial land animals. Just one in my opportunities to work with them has just been some of my favorite in my life. I think my favorite primates would have to be.
Let's go back to the cheetah real quick.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more why they are unique compared to other cats and why you have an affinity for them.
That's a great question. I think I have a particular affinity for cheetahs simply because of their behavior. They do, working with a number, and I've raised a number of big cats over the years, compared to, let's say, a lion or a tiger. They're just an animal that they're very dog-like. Which is interesting. They're basically a cat that has a dog's personality. Because I am more of a dog person than I am a cat person. But it is like a cat that has a dog's personality. And then also, too, it's just, the simple fact that looking at this animal, adaptation-wise, this thing is, he's just perfectly designed for its lifestyle. And I think that's what makes animals my favorite is I really look at their adaptations. Like I look at, and that's what fascinates me. Like you look at like an aye from Madagascar, which is like a little, they're in the lemur family, they're about this big. They look almost like a little gremlin. But this little guy has a finger that's like 3 times longer than the other ones, specifically for getting insects out of a tree. Or you look at, or like an animal like an anteater too. I like animals that like have like these really cool adaptations that really make them very successful in a very niche environment. And again, they're usually found in some very remote part of the world or an area where those weird creatures are endemic, where they're found nowhere else but, let's say, the island of Madagascar or Australia or New Guinea. And I think I think I have a particular attraction to those animals because they're just so unusual.
Okay. So the cheetah is your favorite cat?
I would say,
okay.
yeah. Yeah.
You said you were going to talk about a couple of.
I would say my favorite primate would have to be lemurs. Are my favorite. I love lemurs. Lemurs are so cool. I would say my favorite weasel family animal would be the wolverine. I love wolverines.
Okay.
Those are really cool. My favorite bug would probably have to be, I don't know. I'd say probably the Hercules beetle would have to be my favorite.
What's that?
It's a little insect about this big, and he's got the ability to like lift things. That's why they call him a Hercules beetle. He can lift things, or like a dung beetle too. They can lift things much bigger than themselves.
Okay.
And I like praying mantises too. That's a really interesting guy. And then I'm thinking my favorite bird. Oh, I know what my favorite bird is. My favorite bird you wouldn't even expect it because it's not a bird that flies.
Okay.
It's a rat type, so it's you know what it is. So and they're found in New Guinea, and it's called the cassowary. Okay. And this guy looks like a living dinosaur. He looks just like a velociraptor, and he has the personality of a velociraptor. They're literally a 200-pound turkey that can kill you. So I think so.
Sounds lovely.
So and they're just beautiful animals. They have beautiful casque on their head, beautiful coloration. But again, when you see one of these animals walking around, it literally you're looking back in time at seeing an actual dinosaur. So I think that's the bird that fascinates me the most.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Like I said, I can't answer that with one word.
So, this kind of speaks to, you were talking about New Guinea and Australia and some really unique places to see really unique animals. Somebody asked, Jenna asked, what travel destination has the best exotic animals and why? So if somebody was going to go on vacation and they wanted to see some amazing animals, where would you suggest going?
Obviously, like you can't really beat going on an African safari. You can't beat the rainforests of South America because you're going to see, like if you go to the Amazon, you're going to see so many. You're going to have life all around you. You're going to see such a diversity, or biodiversity, I should say, all around you. But you know what? When it comes to like remote vacation destinations, I would say, Galapagos would probably have to be like one of the key places. I would say Madagascar, and I would say New Guinea. And what all those have in common is that they're all island environments. So all the animals you're going to see there have been there and nowhere else in the world for millions and millions of years. So when you see the plant life, the mammal life, the bird life, insects, reptiles, all of those animals have pretty much, they've been nowhere else and evolved in these little island environments. And so I would say if you want to see something really unique, definitely travel to an island environment.
Okay. One of the things that comes to mind when I think about island animals, I think one of the most famous is probably the Galapagos tortoise.
Sure.
Why do they get so big?
Well, because they didn't really have a ton of natural predators. Thinking about, the way the Galapagos are, and until recently, until humans actually were able to go there, all that lived on this island were big iguanas, big tortoises, and some seabirds, and some aquatic animals that live around. So it's like, animals, can get to, they can grow to these massive sizes, and also talk about the protection. I mean, you're pretty much walking in your own home-built tank, so even if a predator were to go. But they evolved basically because they made it to the island in some way, but they were never able to go back to a mainland, so they evolved and they just grew there. And they do have a counterpart. Like that's what's interesting about evolution too, is that you have this convergent evolution where you have the Galapagos tortoises, but then on the Seychelles Islands near Africa, you have the Aldabra tortoise, and they look and behave very similar, but they evolved totally different apart from each other. And so it's really made. Or like you look at a flying squirrel that we have here in North America, and then you look at a sugar glider that you find in Australia, and they have so many similarities, but they evolved on two different ends of the planet, and two different evolutionary tracks. So it's really cool. That's why I think going to islands, you're going to just see, you're going to see some things that you never thought you even knew existed.
Awesome. Let's see. The last question I have is from Jennifer. She says sloths are pretty cool animals.
Well, Jennifer, I agree.
Are they friendly?
Well, I mean, I think Jennifer shares that. Sloths, I think, have really got this resurgence of popularity lately. But can you talk about just a more interesting animal? I mean, it's an animal that probably lives a lifestyle like most of us would want to. Can you imagine just being able to pretty much hang around all day? They have a very leisurely lifestyle. Really, they only go to the bathroom every couple of days. They eat when they want. Again, they live in an environment where there's danger around every corner, but they seem to evolve pretty well through their camouflage, through their ability to kind of just stay still or adapt and do their movements in a way. I mean, but to say a sloth is friendly, that might be a stretch. I mean, they still are very much a wild animal. They might look like this cute little placid hanging basket off of a tree, but they do have teeth. They have very sharp teeth, almost relative to that of a Phillips head drill bit. Oh. That's very strong jaw pressure. And they're think about how strong you get if you basically hang your entire life. So I mean, their body's strong too. So that's an animal. You don't want a sloth giving you a hug, and you certainly don't want a sloth trying to make you a meal. And it's interesting is that a sloth, and with that being said, Jennifer, too, this is what I have to admit, is that for as slow as a sloth is, I actually was bitten by a sloth one time, and I didn't think I was holding a sloth, and I didn't really understand. He was kind of moving towards my arm a little bit, and his mouth was open. I'm thinking, well, what's going to happen? And I wasn't paying attention. So it's a sloth, but when he bit, it was a very, very, very painful bite. Oh. And the interesting thing is, I mean, how slow can you be to be bit by one of the slowest animals on earth? So it was more a reflection on me than it was on him. He was just doing what came naturally.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you, Jarod, so
awesome.
much.
Thank you, Lauren.
This
is great.
You stopping by. So like I said, we're at the Mazuri booth at Global Pet Expo in Orlando, Florida for the next 3 days here, booth 4020. If you're in town, stop by. We have some amazing animals here. Jarod Miller, a friend of ours.
Yeah. I'm going to hang out with you guys for a couple of days.
Hang out with us for a couple
and
of
our
days.
animal friends.
And our animal friends. Super excited. You can check Jarod out on his Facebook page. Mm-hmm. Jarod also has a syndicated television show. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Animal Exploration?
Sure, yeah. Animal Exploration is our syndicated TV show that we made actually years ago, and it just it still continues to air, where we've traveled pretty much all over the United States, and we visit a lot of zoos, and we meet a lot of animals up close, and we meet a lot of animals that I'm sure that you guys have met and have fed for many, many years. So it's been really fun, and that still airs. And then of course course, we still, like I said, I get to work with animals on a daily basis, and do everything from hang out with you to maybe freak Rachel Ray out once in a while with like a little scorpion or something.
Sure.
But again, yeah, and then again too, if if people have questions or want to get in touch or want to share their enthusiasm or have questions about animals, of course, visit me on my official Jarod Miller Facebook page, and we'll go from there. Or we'll see you here at Global Pet.
Sure. So check your local listings for Animal Exploration. See if his show is airing in your market. Check it out. It's usually on the weekends, I believe, in the morning.
Yep.
Or follow his Facebook page, and you can catch him on Rachel Ray or other television shows with some of his animal friends. And be sure to follow Mazuri for all of your animal nutritional needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, guys.